Well, hi everybody. For those who don't know much about me, I've lived my life pretty much raw. So I'm uneducated. I finished school, my exam results literally spelt dude, you know, so I come out of school, I'm very good with my hands, but I wasn't indoctrinated. So I hadn't actually had any teachings. I couldn't read very well. So in my life, for instance, I've only read about 2.5 books. I got halfway through one in my adult life. The other one was Elves and the Shoemaker and something else I can't remember now. But the reason why I'm making this relevant is the things that I tell you tonight, they don't come from anybody else. They're from my life. It's what's happened to me and my understanding and the way that I've dealt with these things. A lot of the things that I will be talking about are basically, I want to be solution-based. So I don't want to feed people any fear tonight. What I want to do, if I do delve into a little bit of fear or things that happen to us in our lives, I'm actually going to provide with that a thought process that actually gets over it. And you know, these are things that I felt that I had to tell people because personally suffering 12 years, at times severe depression, you're not supposed to come back from that. It's supposed to be so, you know, psychologists will tell you that after about 1.5 years, 2 years, there's something that happens within your mind that converts your mind completely over and makes you like a manic depressive, so you can't actually function and operate from that point. You will always keep triggering back to that. So I had it for 12 years. I got over it, managed to find a way eventually. I didn't bother with any pharmaceuticals, so I would drive the doctors berserk. Because every time I went to the doctors, they would say, how are you feeling inside? I said, well, you know, I'm depressed. And they would say, well, you need some amitriptyline or whatever else they want to give you. You need to do this, you need to do that. And I say, I'm sorry, I don't want any tablets. He said, I know, you keep saying this every time you come in, but these will help you. But the common sense within me, being just taking life for what it is, I saw the relevance of, medication. Whilst it's fantastic, and a lot of people pick this, it's only shielding the symptoms. So we've still got to deal with what's going on inside. So every time we get a headache, we take a headache tablet. We've made that pain go away, but the body's feeling that for a reason. So it's telling us either there's many things it could be telling us. You're too stressed, so you need to do an action on that, or you're detoxifying, and your body's feeling the effects of that. So obviously that's a natural thing as well. Or it could be many things. So masking the symptoms was never really an option for me. I was always a very determined person, having to get over things in life, especially with the life I had, in order to move on. So what I did is I don't want to go into my own personal life too much because I want to make this talk about things that are relevant to all of us. But I feel that I need to let people know the way that things have happened in my life so that you can sit there and go, this guy has been through it. He knows what he's talking about. You know, so I'm gonna listen and maybe take on board some of what he says. So when I was 9 years old, I seen my brother get ran over on Halloween. He died. So that was really the start of my life. Was quite innocent up to then. He was only 6, nearly 7 years old, and I was the only one who was with him and seen the whole thing. So it was quite a traumatic experience to go through. To go across the road after your brother's just been hit right in front of you, like 4 or 5 doors down, and then see him with his head facing the wrong way and all things that you would get to see in a really bad car accident. So that sort of taken my innocence about life. You know, I didn't realize people died. I mean, we don't, do we? Because nobody tells us people die. We just live until someone dies and we go, what happened to them? Well, they're dead, they're not here anymore. you know, and as a child, it's quite hard to take. So that was the start of the roller coaster. There's many little things in between. My mother developed cancer. My brother committed suicide at 25 years old. And then beyond that, there's been many tragedies. I went bankrupt. I lost my home. I've also been in situations where during severe depression, I felt suicidal myself, and I actually gone almost to those, you know, into those actions, and brought myself back from that. So there's a lot of things that I can share with you, you know. And since I've conquered my depression, so it's been now 3 years, since I actually conquered it, I've lost my mum. Everybody loves, well, most people love their mums, you know, they're magical. Mother's cuddle, you can't beat it. And I lost my nan, the closest person to me on planet Earth, and my granddad too. I mean, he was 91, so, you know, he done quite well. But it was all things that happened since that hasn't taken me to that point where I was depressed. And, you know, there was a lot of things that went through my mind during the whole of my life. And probably working as a general builder helped me understand things a bit, because I'm like a fly on the wall in people's houses. Not intentionally, you know, if I'm fitting a kitchen or a bathroom or a building an extension or even a house for people, I get to go in and out of people's lives, many people's lives, year after year, and see exactly how they live. So you will see young families with children who raise them with fear. You would see the young families with children who raise them with love. You will see old couples who've never had children, retired couples, young people who've just got together. You see all these scenarios and all these children growing up, but you go back and revisit on a regular basis. So they'll ask you back to do something else in 3 or 4 years' time, and you think, I love that family, the way they did this, and then you go and see the results. So it's almost like you're this psychiatrist who goes around everybody's houses, analysing what they've done and how they've done it. And that helped tremendously. So something happened to me very special a few years ago, and I understand it now to be an awakening, which many refer to as a midlife crisis, but it's not actually. They feed you a midlife crisis because they want you to go out. I say they, you know, generally to try and keep you within the system and keep you doing the things you're doing. When you get an awakening, something happens where you can switch one way or the other. You're either going to go completely, I don't want this anymore. I want to live off grid. I want an independent life from all this. I don't need to be pampered, you know. Or you go into well, I need a new car and I need a new house and I need a new husband or wife or whatever it may be, you know. And this is something that you know, we all go through at some stage in our lives. We have an awakening, and I chose to live it organically. So I decided that when I had this, what I know now to be like a spiritual awakening, it taught me that my life wasn't right at that moment. It showed me that I was angry and that I was depressed and that nothing I'd done in my life so far, if this is where it's led me, then it hasn't been right. Therefore, I need to readjust and find out exactly what I did right and what I did wrong, and actually make a new life for myself, because what have I got to lose? You know, and this is the point that a lot of people get to. You know, even when you always find that people who have near-death experiences, they go through the same thing. They come around after having that near-death experience, and they're different people. Their lives are never the same, because they go, I would never have been here. There's a chance that I would have just been gone. I'm going to start living my life. And they just make all these split decision, decisions that take them into a new life, and those who support them will accept that, you know. And this is the lines that people have to go down when they go through major things in their lives. So part of the thing, mostly what I've come here to talk about, is fear, because fear is the only way that we can be controlled. There is no other form of control outside of fear. So when I say controlled, I mean controlled by ourselves, guided, we have to do this, otherwise that happen, or whatever, and also fear from outside sources. So intimidation or just fed, what this will happen if you don't do this. It's all fear-based. And when you learn that fear has a place in everybody's life, every emotion we feel is completely normal and completely natural. But fear is one of those that you want to try, along with all the fear-based emotions, you want to try and convert as quick as possible. So knowing that fear is the only way you can be controlled, and the only way that we get up and we do things, go to jobs we don't like, make decisions we don't really want to make, that's all fear-based. Because if we actually were just in a love-based mindset and the world was all, fluffy pink bunnies, then we would all go on and do exactly what we wanted to do. But it's not like that. So what we need to do is we need to learn our emotions, where they come from, what we feel, and how to deal with them. And one of the main things that we have to understand, I'm going to take you through a process tonight, which when it ends up, you have to bear with me as I'm going through these steps, and you'll think, what's the relevance to fear? But these are things that need to be understood in order to overcome the fear you feel inside. So an important thing to understand is that there's two opposites. There's love and fear. They're the two true opposites. There's people say, love and hate are the two true opposites, but they're not. Love and fear are the two true. Every emotion that you could ever think of either exists in love or fear. It's got to be one or the other. Now, there are emotions, which are the very useful emotions, that bridge love and fear. So they can be used in both emotions. And these are the ones that we need to use. And a particular one that I use on a regular basis is passion. Because when you can be passionate about something fear-based, or you can be passionate about something love-based. So it's one of those emotions that you can juggle about. It's a choice. Which choice do you want to make? So once you understand that love and fear are the two true opposites, people sometimes say, well, how can love be, love's controlling, because when you're in love, you get tortured. You go through real emotional pain. But I always say to them, well, let's say that you're in love and you feel hate for the other person. That's a fear-based choice. Hate doesn't exist in love. So when you start hating somebody, it's because you've thrown yourself into that person. They're doing something now that tortures you inside, and you start to hate them as well as love them. So this is like a fear-based reaction. It's a form of control. So you want to control that other person. True love. So if you ever find, when people talk about unconditional love is exactly that. You would place no conditions on that other person. But that is very, very tough. It's something that it took me many, many years to come to understand and actually feel. But once you feel unconditional love, it heals you. Because you realize that you can't control other people. That there's no such thing as control. You can guide anything in your life, but you can't control anything. Because it's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. So I could say to you, right, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to give this, like an hour and a half talk. And I could have a heart attack. I don't know that. The chances are a very, very high chance that I'm going to make it through to the end and everything's fine. I hope so, But there is an element of what I'm trying to point out by this is that you can't control life. It just has to be lived. And one of the major parts of realizing this is the only thing that's real in our lives is this moment. That's the only thing that actually exists. So everything that we've ever done in our lives, it don't exist anymore. It's imagination. And I'm going to go into all this a bit later in the talk, but basically if you imagine two people So we all know somebody that we shared a really funny experience with, maybe 5 years ago or last year. You think back to that experience. When you talk about it, if you come back and talk about it a couple of years later, their version and your version of it, even though you were stood in the same room having the same experience, they're both different. You know, so when you're talking and that person say, well, this person said that and that, no, they didn't say that. I remember something different because it's now logged in your imagination. So you've created it. Now it's not actually real at this moment. It only exists in your imagination. It's a memory which alters and changes. And and you can alter and change it purposely yourself. And this is where it comes in handy with abuse situations and things that have gone wrong in your life. You can view things from a different mindset that actually takes away the fear of what happened and gives you an understanding, because everything that happens to us, negative or positive in our life, it's our choice of perception. There's some terrible things that happen to us, but we can always just focus on what happened that was good about that, or what was, it's very difficult, but I'm going to show you how to do these things, because some people say, well, if I was, like with my brother died, and I've seen him got ran over and everything else. Would I be up here talking today if that didn't start that emotional roller coaster? My mum went through severe depression and that caused her cancer. So it was all these bad things that happened. I can view it all that way, and I've lost my brother and this, that, and the next happened. But when you actually start to change your mindset, because you realize that what you're doing to yourself is self-sabotage. So every time you're reminding yourself of these imaginations that you have from the past, because that's what it is now, you're re-torturing, reliving that event. So you have to ask yourself, how relevant is that to keep doing that to myself now? And one of the things that is good to learn about past traumatic events is that, and you hear a lot of people say it, they've had a terrible life. I've had a terrible life. I wouldn't change my life for anything. I wouldn't want to be numb to all or live apart from all what I've gone through, because it's what made me who I am today. So that would be one positive that a lot of people talk about. We all would say that. We wouldn't really look around and swap our life for anybody, because it's our unique, version. And once you start looking at things like that, and you start looking at things from a positive side of it, what experience did I get from that? What has it done for me? How has it changed my life? Once you deal with it, and you actually start viewing it positive, you realize that there's a lot that you can change around in your lives, because we all get tortured, in a sense, during our lives, because we live in a world which is not necessarily, great at times. But once we learn how to convert all those experiences and start being an observer of what goes on, and take a little bit of a backward step and change our mindset, then we can understand a lot more of how to progress and learn from that and move on, because that's our only option. If we're going to be here, what are we going to do? Are we going to self-sabotage ourselves, or are we going to actually, start doing things about it, and maybe viewing it different? Because I don't know about you guys, but when you get to a point where you don't want to go on, and you hate your life, and things like that, you have to come to this decision, because you know that what you're doing doesn't work, because you don't feel like being here. Or maybe some people haven't got to that stage, but they do feel anxiety, or they feel like, I don't really like what's going on in my life. So, we have to make dramatic changes in our lives to make sure that everything's good. Now, another thing about the past being imagination, and that's how we view it now, from a memory that alters and changes to what we perceive. So does the future. So if we're looking at the future only exists in imagination, because we just imagine which way we want our lives to go, and that almost plays out in our lives. So whilst the past, our imagination of the past is a reality to us at this moment, and our imagination of the future will also become a reality eventually. And the mind plays a very powerful role in everything. So the way we perceive things from our own personal level, we're all unique. So from a spiritual aspect, I would say we're all one. I can prove that to everybody tonight, and I will. But from an individual aspect, we've all got a pair of eyes, and only we see that perspective of what's going on around us. So we've all got a unique story, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So whilst we're all one and we all feed into this energy field of information, we're all experiencing it from our own eyes in our own way. And it's important when you start to look at your life, things that have happened in the past and things that happen in the future, it's important to understand that the past equals depression and the future equals anxiety. That's where those emotions lie. So knowledge is power. As you start to look at this, you think, well, what do I feel? Do I feel depression? Right, what was it in the past that's given me depression? What do I feel? I feel anxiety. What is it in the future that's giving me anxiety? Now, some people will say, well, I feel both. Then you go, right, so you're living in the past and you're living in the future. But remember that neither the past or the future actually exists. It's irrelevant to you now. The only thing that actually exists is this moment. So the reason why I'm pressing this so much is because this is a pivotal point in my life, the realization of that is actually, this is it. This is what we've got at this moment as I speak. When it's ended, it's gone. It's now imagination as I speak. It's all coming out. It's what you take from it as I speak that decides what memory you have of it. So the important bit about that is that if you suffer from depression, for instance, or anxiety, you're actually living in the past or the future, which now I've just told you doesn't exist. So you can start, if you had severe depression, we all know that you find it very hard, anybody who's had it, find it very hard to get up out of the chair. At times when it gets, when it's borderline, had enough, I'm going to end my life, whatever it may be, or I'm thinking about it, or I don't want to be here anymore. Those moments that you feel so heavy, you sit in a chair and you feel nothing, absolutely nothing. So the people you love the most on the entire planet could be in front of you, your children or anything running around, and that would mean nothing. And that's very hard for people to understand, especially when your children are your entire life, and people know that around you, and your wife and your husband or whatever, that they're your entire life and you love them to bits. What people don't get, they always say, oh, snap out of it, or keep yourself busy. These are all useful things for people who are a bit anxious or a bit, just to occupy their mind, to take their mind away, but it's no good for depression, because you can't do that. You're literally stuck to the chair. You sit in that chair and it's like someone strapped you in, and every time you go to get out, you can't get out. So you want to get out and make a cup of tea, or do something. Just get out and walk outside the front door. And it's maybe a lovely sunny day. And there's great things going on outside. It doesn't matter, because you're now you've blown a fuse. It's your body's protection. It's what I'm going to show you as time goes on is the way I relate to it is your soul is being tortured. It's your soul that's being tortured because you're living a false life. You're not living the life that you want to live, the life that you love, and the life that you want. The things that make you excited, you're not doing them. You're not making choices that you want to make. You're living your life for other people or other things. So the more you go into that fake side of your life, the more so imagine your body is this organism which is full of loads of cells, and those cells are attracted to certain frequencies, which ends up being the soul. So your soul now is being tortured. So your soul wants to terminate you. It's prodding you. It's going, oh, you want that, do you? Well, we'll give you it. And every time you're making the wrong choices in life, it's that it doesn't want. If you view it from this mindset, every time you're making the wrong choices in life that it doesn't want, it just keeps torturing you with these feelings. And when you start making the right choices in life, your soul seems to reward you. It seems to be like, oh yeah, I'm doing something that I like. I'm doing something I love. This is what I'm built for. And I call it soul food. So, I mean, this is a mindset. Obviously, I don't see my soul floating around anywhere or anything like that. I'm just talking, I'm trying to let you know that you're not keeping your inner self. Some people call it spirit, some people call it soul. So, scientists would just say it's just memory within cells that you're connecting to. But whichever view you've got, I chose the soul route to explain it. So when you get into this severe depression and you literally can't move, you don't even want to make the right choices. So you know what's good for you. You know what you've got to do to get over this. You know that you need to get up and get outside of that door because, for instance, if you educate yourself, you know that the vitamin D3 comes from the sun. So you need to get out in the sunshine. You need to breathe fresh air. You know there's certain things that you're lacking that are causing this. Alcohol does it wrong. All the other things that, that you take, and the drugs, Prozac or whatever you may be on that really sort of numbs you down. These things mask it, and it's like you're running from it in a way. You're covering up the symptoms. And once you realize that these symptoms that you're feeling within your body that it's showing you, they need to be dealt with, and they need to be eliminated, not by numbing them, but by actually going on and putting things into action. That's the bit where you will know the things that are triggers for you. You will know the things that are no good. And some things you will actually decide when you change your life, you'll decide to cut certain things out. And I will give an example of food types and diets that really help, like the alkaline diet. When you do that, your clarity of thought starts coming back, because a lot of this is just chemicals that flow around the brain, and they get these demons. It gets worse and worse. And sometimes depression can be purely caused by that. It might not even be a traumatic event. It might be just the food types and the chemicals that are mixing up within you. And we're all bombarded by chemicals every day. Every day. I'm surprised we're all alive as a human race, to be honest. I know 1 in 2 of us are predicted to get cancer now, but I know I won't. I can say that with confidence because I've done the research. And this is where the research takes away the fear. And this is how I want to show you that when you actually start taking the right things and eating the right foods, then you get the confidence within, because you've done your research, you've seen other people survive whatever, depression. We're all here tonight to hear me talk about, depression, how to convert it. So you're here in a love-based action. You've decided, we've decided as a room to come together and all have a talk and sort these things out. This is a positive thing, and this is why I love coming and doing talks with people, because the people who actually want to turn up, they're the people who are actually doing action. And that's very important. So going back to what I was talking about earlier, if you've got fear, and you know that fear is the only way that you can be controlled, guided, manipulated, whatever it may be, if you know that fear is the only way that you can be controlled, then you know that you need to eliminate it as quick as possible. So you know it's a useful thing. So you feel fear. It could be fear, my child's running along the pathway by the side of me. I need to grab her hand to make sure they don't run out in front of a car. It could be something as simple as that. So that would be an elimination of fear, because you'd hold their hand and you walk along the road. Now they're not going to do that. You could choose to walk through a park instead of walking alongside of a road. So these things, that's one way of dealing with it. But there's other ways. When you get fear, one of the most important things to realize is that you need to convert. When you feel fear, it's there for a perfectly good reason. So you might be stood on the edge of a cliff and the wind's blowing. You think, this isn't very clever. I'm going to go flying in a minute and I'll be kaput. Gravity don't care about me. So the fear would make you step back. So what you've done is you've decided, I'm passionate about living. I'm going to take a few steps backwards. And then doing that very action has now eliminated that fear, hasn't it? So when you get events happen in real life, they're tougher, because you may have got yourself in a situation, most of the time it's from ignoring danger signs or your body. You're being tortured inside by your soul, but you keep ignoring it, and it gets worse and worse until your life is almost trapped. And the best way to convert fear to love is to choose something passionate that counteracts it. It might not even be to do with the thing that you're fearing, but it will actually counteract that thing in the end. So you would find something that you're passionate about that can counteract what's going on here, and then you would put that into action. And that's the most important thing, is actually making actions. Because when you are depressed and you do feel down, the actions are the hardest thing to do. Because we all know what we've got to do. You know, a lot of people can go around in a daze and just not know what to do. And I deal with these people all the time. I get a lot of messages that you can imagine, the stories that come out. You know, people just trust you when you can help people and your words help people. They come to you for help. So when you pass off these stories and then you see them completely change their lives, you know that what works for me can work for someone else. It might not work for everybody, but I certainly found ways, and you know, and I passed them on, and you know, it's worked for a lot of people. So when let's say, how can I go about this? If we fear something, why am I up here today? Obviously, that is an action, right? So I've put something into action. So this is love-based. We're in a love-based room. We're all here because we want to share experiences, and we want to hear what each other got to say and help each other. Now, why did that come about? Why am I up here? I would say I'm passionate about helping people who have felt the same as me, because I'm fearful to live in a world where everybody felt the same as me, because I would never have anybody to interact with. And all I see around me every day is people walking with their heads down. And it's very disheartening. I mean, I live out in the country, so I'm a bit blessed like that. But when you drive through a city centre or walk through, everybody's walking with their heads down. You can see they don't want to be in the job they're in. Bristol's not a bad place, actually, because percentage-wise, there's a lot more people walking with their heads up, not on their phones, and actually talking and communicating. So we do live in a fantastic city for that. But you know, there's a good culture and acceptance in Bristol of all different types of people. But you know, when I see a world full of people who are walking around and they just don't, they just look like they're tortured. They look like they were burst into tears. They look like if I walked up to them and said, "Are you okay?" and put my hand on their shoulder, they look like they just burst out in tears. You know, and I want to help every single one of these people. So what I've chose to do is to come here, places like this, and go all around the country and actually talk to people and share my experience, because I don't want to live in a world like that. You know, I want people to feel really energized by what I say and what I share, and actually make a better life for themselves. So I go around, I think to myself, right, you know, what led me here, it was depression myself, and then I see people suffering, I want to help, so I've converted that to passion. I don't want to see people like this, it tortures me as well as them, and I'm going to go around and do it. Now, also, so part of the realization of when you feel depression and you feel fear, you need to understand the way there's a bigger picture. You start to step, you have to go inward. Everything exists within. If there's any answer that you're looking for outside of yourself, then you're putting your power over to other people. And eventually that will be let down one way or another. If it's winning the lottery, you may not ever win. If it's banking on someone to keep loving you, they may stop loving you. You know, every time that you look outside of yourself, you open yourself up to potential hurt. Now, it doesn't mean to say that you go around your whole life saying, I'm not going to accept anything off anybody and I'm just going to live my own life. That's rubbish too. But what I'm saying is that everything that you need to look for exists within, and it's your perception of that. So it's your perception of the relationships, it's your perception of the world, and everything else that goes on. That's actually what matters in the end. That's what's going to get you through. And part of realizing and understanding your perception of the world around you, you have to take steps backwards. So if you're looking at things immediately in your life, like this person's in front of you and they're upsetting you, and that, you know, I don't live in a very nice place, and these people aren't being very good to me. We can look at a world like that and we can keep viewing it like that. But one of the important things to do is to start asking why. So you've got to be like we're taught, when we're kids, all we do is go, why? And the parents go, oh, yeah, they answer you about 5 times, and then it's like, oh, yeah, leave me alone now, I've got things to do, I'm busy. And you almost get indoctrinated out of asking why. So one of the most important things to do when you're older is to start asking yourself why. Because when you actually look at your inner self, when you're looking inward, in order to look inwards, you need to step back and look at the bigger picture. The only way you're going to look at the bigger picture is not to say, this person's not treating me very nice, don't make me feel very well. You've got to ask, why am I offended by the way that person's treating me? Why have I given them the power to be able to do that? Why, all these questions are very important to ask ourselves, and we need to take them as far as they can go. So, personally, I do quite a few talks around the country. I get invited to talk at cancer seminars. So, because there's many aspects to cancer that are triggers. And as well as, you've got your food and your environment, you've also got your emotions. So I cover the emotional side of cancer because ultimately, if you are in an acidic mindset, then chances are with the acidic lifestyle and environment, you are going to make yourself ill eventually. So I talk the emotions about that. And a lot of people say to me, when I explain to people the bigger picture, so you've got this, anybody who gets illnesses and things like that today, they're actually really good people. Even if they're tortured and they don't seem very nice to be around. What you have to remember is you've got to convert this to a very love-based mindset. So I don't mean to say you've got to put up with what they dish out, but you can view it more sympathetically. So what I say to these people, because a lot of these people now, they're terminal. Their last chance is a natural way, which they never would have looked at before, but the oncologist has said, we can do no more for you. So these people I'm talking to, I'm really feeling the connection with them and trying to take them through what's led them to this point, right? So when you're talking to these people, what you understand is that everybody who gets dis-ease in their life, they're usually people who are very empathetic, they're very caring, they take on everybody's emotions. So anybody around them who are being, tortured themselves, they take that into their feelings, into their own bodies, and they're like, oh my God, that's terrible, what happened to so-and-so, what happened to this? What do you find? You find that the people who actually live on and live a good life are always the ones who don't deserve it. Because they're the ones who say, I don't give a damn, well, I don't care if that person down the road's dying, they deserve it, and I don't care about that there, and I don't want children, and I don't love anybody, I'm my own person, I love myself. And these types of people who go around their life not caring about anybody, they're the people who survive. And we all say it. Why did it have to be them? I know they were quite edgy and maybe quite angry with life, but they were lovely people deep down inside. Why couldn't it be and choose my words carefully, why can't it be that person up the road who's just horrible and nasty to everybody? Why does he get to live on till, to whatever age and live this sort of carefree life? And that's your answer, because the good people are the ones who get ill. So the most important thing to learn is that everybody who gets these illnesses and depressions, and maybe even suicidal thoughts, these people are good people because they've connected so deeply with their emotions. They know the world's not right. They know that things are wrong, and they know that they want to do so many things about it, and they feel everybody's pain around them. But they can't, they don't know how to get over that. They just feel all the pain, self-sabotage, but don't actually know how to deal with that. So, I mean, what I say to these people, they say, because I always have questions and answers at the end, where people can ask me what they like. And a lot of the time I get questions like, what is, all right, so I've got a family member, they're a very close family member, and I can't really manage without them in my life. Because they're living in their home, or they're or they're nearby and they keep popping in and visiting and things like that, and they always make me feel down. And I'm now, going back to the people who ask me the questions, I'm terminal, and I don't want to have to deal with that really, but what do I do to get away? And I will say to them, well, look, health is number one. And the health of you is more important than anybody else. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're not well inside, you're not going to be here very long. So let's say these people now are terminal, or their partners are terminal. They come here, to hear a talk, and they've had this diagnosis and they're not very well. So I say, right, the most important person, because it's the same for depression, especially severe depression. You're the most important person to be well. Your health is number one. Health is number one across the board for anybody. Nobody can challenge that, because it's no good being a millionaire or having a massive family or anything if you're going to be dead tomorrow, because you can't see anything, you can't experience any of it. So you need to understand that there is times when you become the number one. So these people who are around you, who are close to you, or who are torturing you, they may not know that they're doing it to you. It may be your fault for not standing up for yourself. Not your fault, it's your empathy that makes you think, I don't want to make them down, I don't want to cause a hassle, it's all the nice things. And then you take all that pressure on and they keep adding to it and they keep taking advantage. So the most important thing then is to let these people know, look, I'm suffering from severe depression, or I'm terminal. What you say to me and what you do to me is not very nice. And it makes me worse, and I want to live. And I want you to respect the fact and start respecting me, and I've got to point these things out to you. Now, it's now in their court. So what are they going to do about that? So their decision then means a lot, because they may go on and just stay out of it for a little while and start getting back into it, and you can point out again. But there may be the people who go, I didn't even realize I was doing that. So airing your point of view, making this clear to them, would make them see. So they say, I don't even realize I was doing that. I'm so sorry. Would you please, if I ever do that again, just tell me. These are the lovely people, obviously really good people don't give you any hassle in the first place. But some people are lovely, but you want them there as a bit of a love-hate thing. But you want them there in your life, but you don't necessarily want to be tortured by them. So you need to make that clear. Now, if you're in a situation where they say, well, you shouldn't do this then, and you shouldn't do that, that's dead. That relationship has to go, because you are now in a situation where you're severely depressed or you're terminal. And if you don't take care of that situation, you won't be here to be with them or anybody else anyway. Especially if you've got other dependents on you, like children or anybody else in your family who treat you well. So you need to remove yourself from them, or them from you. This is a basic. This is where fear is very useful in this moment now. And what happens is, let's say I'm stood up here now on the stage, and somebody in the crowd decides to come at me with a knife. I'm going to fear that. That's fear working as it should do. I'm then going to think to myself, right, what am I going to do? So my brain then kicks in with adrenaline. You get this sort of fight or flight mode that comes on just like that. And then you either removing them as a threat from you, or you as a threat from them. So you're either running or you're taking them down, or whatever you're doing. Now, that would be an immediate reaction to fear. That would be where fear is most useful, in this immediate time now. But when you're projecting fear into the future, that's when it becomes harmful. Now, we've got that ability as humans, because we need to make sure we've got food for the next week or for tomorrow, and fresh water. And we need to make sure that our families are okay. Things like that. So whilst projective fear is a natural human reaction, what we need to do is make sure that projected fear doesn't become about things that we can do nothing about. Things that just end up going around in a big circle, and there's constant fear all the time. So if you had a fear of, maybe how am I going to feed myself next week, go out and do the shopping. It's all there, and that fear's gone. Now you've got enough food to last you the week. The other way is if you're in fear of something in the future that you can do nothing about. So you've got to ask yourself, why? Why do I fear this? What is it doing to me? Let's say you're fearing doing your job, right? So you fear getting the sack because maybe you've made a mistake. You would think to yourself, what can I do to put that mistake right? Or you line up another form of work. You ask someone else for a job, or you arrange something else. This would be an action. So you're passionate about keeping a job of some form. Do you really want that job? Do you want to go on to something else? And this is how you use passion to convert in love base. So you're going, right, what do I want to do? Do I really want to do that, or do I want to do something else? And this is the way that you deal with projected fear. Now, if there's anybody who wishes to control you, they will use projected fear to control you. So let's look at governments. They want you all on side. They want you all voting. There would be no need for them in a love-based society. They just wouldn't be needed. There would be no need for any form of control or outside interference at all. But what they do is they feed you things that are projected that you can do nothing about, but they pretend that they can on a bigger scale, because you as a person feel weak to deal with that. And you think, well, we all have to vote for these people because we need to create a world where this fear that they're feeding us on the TV, which is just, especially the news, is terrible. They're feeding you this fear all the time. And there's reasons for that they know that's the only way that they can control you. They actually don't want the spirits of the people being lifted and people starting to feel free. Because when you start feeling free and you start growing your own stuff and they stop coming after you for all the taxes and things like that, and they let you live in, eco shacks in fields and things like that, people will go, well, I'll always have a home because I can go out and build what I want. I can go and, do what I like. I can grow my own veg. So they need to keep you in this perpetual state of fear. And the fear gets bigger. It gets a bigger picture. So it's like, today, for instance, it would be terrorism. They're always, they're doing terrorism by proxy. So you're being fed terror. These terrorists are going to do this unless you let us do that. So it's just using that exterior force to use you, to get you to vote and do things that you don't want to do, and obviously put your trust and power into them. This is the only way that anybody who wishes to control you in your life, the only way that they can control you is through fear. And it's most often not direct fear there and then, but it's the fear of what could happen. So in an abusive relationship, the wife, or sometimes the husband fears the wife fears the husband, whichever way. But say the wife fears the husband saying things, shouting, maybe hitting her or things like that, then that wife falls into line and usually does whatever they want or tries to keep them happy. Now, this is just a sign of how that projected fear almost becomes a way of life and it becomes accepted. And that's what we do in society as a whole as well. The people who actually abuse us, it's like a Stockholm syndrome. So we almost fall in love with our capturers. It all lies within us. That's the thing. Everything that we view on the outside world as being, that we start to fear, you'll always find that we always want to put our trust into someone else to sort it out. And we always pass the buck off to other people. And the trouble is with this sort of mindset is you will always be able to be controlled. Everything that you want to know exists within. And I want to cover what happens when you look within. And you have to bear with me because you'll see where this is going later on when I get into it deeper. If you want to look at the human body and the way it reacts and the what causes you to do the things you do, if I was to put it in scientific terms, we're an organism which is made of loads of atoms and cells that ultimately hold together with a frequency, and these oscillate. So if you look at an atom, for instance, it's got a nucleus, it's got protons, neutrons, electrons, if you understand that they're flying around the nucleus in the middle, then you look at our cosmos and our planetary system. We've got a nucleus. We've got all planets all around us that are flying at different ratios and speeds and all circulating the sun. So when you look at that, as above, so below, you realize that what we actually are loads of miniature planetary systems. And these planetary systems are held together, and they're 99.9% empty space. Well, what's out there? 99.9% empty space. So do you see how this works? So most of the information that we hold, or that is all around us, exists in empty space. It doesn't exist in the actual structures. It does, but it exists also in the empty space. There is no such thing as empty space. All these places are full of, how can I describe this? If you imagine a radio, if I brought a radio in here and sat it down there and I started to tune it in, pulled the aerial up, I would pick up loads of different frequencies from radio stations. So where's that coming from? It's not coming from a lead plugged into the wall. It's not actually physical. It's in the air. So it's a frequency that microchip within that radio has picked up because of the way I've adjusted it. So as I've adjusted the radio, it's tuned into different voices, different frequencies. Those frequencies exist all around us all the time. And they're in digital format and they're in analog format. But whatever it is, every news channel that plays the news, every radio station, every cell phone, every tower, all this exists all around us all the time. Now, once you get to understand that this is all flying around in the empty space around us, you understand that you're actually a receiver, you're an antenna for this information. And like a radio, when you tune it, you tune your body. So it depends on which frequency you want to pick when you tune your body into this planet as to what information you receive. And the worst, and what I say to you is, most people have an acidic diet. So the stuff they eat actually makes them acidic. And like say, going back to diseases, including cancer, cannot exist in an alkaline body. That's proven. So if cancer can't exist in an alkaline body, or it can't grow in an alkaline body, and when it reaches a certain level of alkaline, then it actually kills every cancerous cell in your whole body. Now we know that, and we know that all diseases can't exist in an alkaline body. Now we need to look at getting our bodies to alkaline. Because if you imagine bodies in frequency, so you've got the acidic, so below 7 pH is acidic, above 7 pH, and it goes up to 14, is alkaline. When we're tuning our receiver in, hearts, so as we're tuning our heart in, we need to pick up alkaline frequencies, because that's where all the good information, all the good radio, our frequencies exist, our information that supports us exists. If you're going to tune it into an acidic, if you're going to tune your heart into an acidic frequency, then you will get all the negative stuff, and you start feeling like you've got the demons, the black dog. People say the black dogs are coming to get them. That's a common phrase in depression, and that's basically the tuning of the body. Now, once you understand that all these frequencies exist all around us, and that we choose through our thought process and our perception what we tune into. So part of that would be diet. So we're going back to the diet again. The environment, you wouldn't want to be anywhere where you're breathing in toxic or actually got toxic chemicals in the air that are going to be absorbed through the skin, because your skin's your largest organ, it breathes. So whatever you put on your skin gets taken into there. Now, when you understand that your body needs to become alkaline, part of that is the thought process. If you can give yourself an alkaline mindset, and you can feed yourself an alkaline diet by doing research, then you will tune in to the higher frequencies, and those higher frequencies are pretty amazing, but you have to do your inner work as well. There's things that I'm telling you tonight that would aid that, and it would make you think, and all of a sudden there's light bulb moments where you start thinking, this is really strange. I look around at people and there are loads of atoms and they're planetary systems, and that's what they're supporting within them. Just like we're supporting this planet we're sat on, and so on. It just keeps going and going. There's no end either way. There's no end when you go smaller. There's no end when you go bigger. There's no end to the universe. If you get a brick wall in the universe, when you knock the brick wall down, there's going to be something behind it. And it's the same when you go small. Every time that scientists, what they don't realize is they keep looking for this God particle, and they keep focusing in with these telescopes and God knows what else, and microscopes, and trying to find the God particle. What they don't realize is that's an endless game. They just don't. They don't use their common sense. When you zoom into an atom, then you find that it's got a nucleus and it's got loads of other atoms. Then you zoom into those parts of that, then you find that that's got more, and then you keep zooming in. Every time you zoom into those you know, the smaller, every time you tune into those, zoom into those smaller atoms and molecules, they just realize that's another planetary system now. So now we're going smaller again. And we can only go so far because we're so big. It's the same as we can only see it so far out there because we're so big. So what you realize is that all this is endless. We're just part of a bigger game. We could be inside of a rock somewhere on another planet. Who knows? You know, when you start thinking like this, you start understanding that, not that life shouldn't be taken so seriously, but there's a bigger game. There's trying to fight against that would just be phenomenal. You're never going to come to the end of it. You're never going to win, and you'll only end up making yourself ill. So when you see this planet and the way it is, and the fact that, you know, you want to tune into those alkaline frequencies, so you need to give yourself an alkaline diet. When you actually start to tune into that and tune into those frequencies, something amazing happens. And every time that I've got anything happen in my personal life, so all what I tell you has happened in my personal life, it's realizations, and then I've done the research. So I mean, you know, I'm not that great at reading. My attention span is terrible. I can read, but I'll get to 2 sentences and everything that I just read on the first sentence is gone. Because my mind goes away. Oh yeah, so that means this and this means that. And you know, I've always been an overthinker. It's actually been a demon for me for many years, but now I realize why. Now I realize there's a bigger picture. So when you're going into alkaline, and you're starting to have alkaline mindset, you start to understand the universe and the way it works. What you find is your brain is made up of many different sections. People think the brain's just one. Well, it can be. It can work together. But there's a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, and there's a pineal gland, and there's all these other little bits and sections. And all these sections all got their own specific job. So your left-hand side of your head would be used on the right-hand side of your body, and so on, right, with your left-hand side of your body. And all these things have actual purposes in life. They're thought processes. Now, what's unique is when if a scientist done an EEG scan on your scalp, what they would find is that every time they attach these electrodes, they would all be different frequencies all around. That's most of the population, is all different frequencies. So they'll read that and they'll see all these different frequencies. Then very, very rarely, what happens is all these frequencies are like a load. Imagine a load of people marching down a street, right? And they're all just walking, doing their own merry thing at their own paces and everything else. Now, what happens when you start getting the right mindset, which is something that for instance, Einstein had, your brain becomes coherent. So what it does, it starts to work with itself. It becomes one. All these different parts that are all oscillating at different frequencies, when you start having the right mindset, they start to work together as one big brain. So imagine, you know, you've got people walking down the street, loads of people, different paces. Now all of a sudden you've got an army marching down the street. They're all walking exactly in time, exactly in step with each other. They're all in tune. They all know what each other's thinking. They've tuned into each other. Suddenly your brain, your world just opens up. You become this big antenna. But something even more amazing happens, and that's in the heart. When you get this within your brain, you start seeing the bigger world and what it actually is. Your heart has got also different points. And when you do the ECG scan, there's actually, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a scientific test you can do to see what each part of this heart is, what its frequency is within that. What we find again, same with the brain. It can be working at different frequencies, but something very special happens when you start opening up and you start releasing yourself, as in you start being an observer in your life and actually making choices and taking power over your life. This becomes coherent. So now you've got the brain's coherent, the heart's coherent, and suddenly the world opens up and you feel all the stress that you felt before just goes. You can feel it within. When that happens, the heart connects to the brain connects to the heart, and they're both now marching to the same step. When that happens, you get what's called spontaneous healing, and that's mentally and physically. So once you've got this coherence that happens between your heart and your brain, the actual frequencies, when they start working together, suddenly you feel really well. And I'll tell you what I describe it like, because I've been through this many, you can bring yourself to this level quite often once you learn how to do it. What you find is that, when people have near-death experiences and they say that they seen the light and they just felt like everything was love. They just felt this overwhelming feeling of love and compassion and like everything was worth it and it was all lovely. Now these people who get brought back into our world, they say that it was just an amazing experience. That is how I would explain what happens when the heart connects with the brain. And when that happens, when the two connect like that, but you're still alive, obviously, you're not having a near-death experience. When that happens, when the two connect, and then you get this overwhelming feeling of love, your body is now healing. It's spontaneous healing. So on a personal level, I started noticing I was sat in my chair at home, and I just looked around at my family, and I love my family, and I felt amazing. I've gone through all this stuff. I've come to all this realization, done this research. I've now got an alkaline diet, and all of a sudden I realized that the world's a lot bigger than what we think it is, and I'm at peace with everything and everybody. I view everybody as victims, or anything wrong in their lives, I view them as victims, including, anybody in positions of power, the army or terrorists. I start viewing them all as victims, because that's the only natural thought process. I know that sounds hard for people to realize, but I can explain into that too, and the thought process that comes with that. And once you do this and you get this feeling, what I found was I'd actually, in part of my life, I was attacked and I had a bottle smashed over my face. So it cut me several places and, loads of little scars. And what I didn't realize was I was there. Suddenly, spots of blood started appearing. They started running down my face. And I had a spot here and a spot there and something up there and down here on my cheek. And I was like, and it was really bleeding. This was, and I'm going like this. I'm going, why is my face bleeding? And my wife looked around and God, what's going on with you? She had her headphones on at times. She's like, what's going on with you? And I said, I don't know. I said, I just felt overwhelming love. And then all of a sudden I've got all these blood spots. And when I felt them, they felt sharp. I said, I've got a feeling all these are on my old scars. I've got a feeling all the glass is coming out of my face. But I didn't know there was any in there. So I said, get some tweezers. So she got these tweezers and she's there in my front room, and our front room, and she's pulling out these pieces of glass out of my face. Tiny little splinters that I didn't even know existed. But for some reason, they just all decided to come out. And this is when I if that happened to any of you, you'd be like, what just happened? I want to look into this. I want to see what happened. So I just put the feelers out there and amongst people who were around me, because they've done a lot more research into a lot of the things I was into at the time. And then start getting articles back, and you start getting things to read, and then you realise that it was spontaneous healing. It was the coherence between the heart and the mind that happened through unconditional love for the entire planet and everybody on it. That I'm realising that we are all one, because we all share these frequencies, and that created spontaneous healing. Once you actually get something like that happen in your life, it changes you. There's something fundamental inside of you that just makes you crave that. And it wasn't something I was particularly looking for, because I didn't know what I was going to find. So you can't go searching for something you've never been taught about or never experienced before in your life. It just happens to you. But what I will say is that when you start choosing all these different things and you start taking a step back in your life and viewing it from a slightly more funny angle, start laughing at things that are actually, we've all had it. We had so many things go wrong in one day that suddenly we just burst out laughing. We could have been crying an hour earlier, and this is packed up and that's happened and I got no money and my car's broke down and what's going to happen next? And then something else happens and it sends you over the edge, and all of a sudden you're just laughing because you go, this is so funny and so amusing. And that's when that's the way you deal with it. You all of a sudden you're like, right, there's so many things gone wrong that I just can't possibly deal with all these. It's just now a laugh, isn't it? You're just the observer. What's going to go wrong next? This is just funny. Why don't I just put something wrong, make something wrong myself? Go and smash something up or something. Just for a laugh. Beat it to it. Beat the universe to it. But what you understand is that when you get these feelings, you pass them to other people, and this is part of what I was explaining about frequencies. If you imagine the frequencies that we all operate under, the frequency of us in analog is like this. So that's natural for us. The height, if it's like this, that's a higher frequency. If it's long and drawn out, that's a lower frequency. Imagine a straight line through the middle. Every time that wave crosses that line, the more often it is, the higher the frequency. That's natural to us. That's what our old radios used to work on and everything else. And when you understand that that's what we are, we're just wave patterns. Science has proven this. It's called the double slit experiment. So if you look up the double slit experiment, what you'll find is that when there's an observer to this universe, then the universe comes together. As soon as you shut your eyes or look away, everything around us that exists as a hard thing turns into a wave pattern. That's proven. So when you know this, you know that you have created everything within this room and the entire, everywhere you walk, when you drive down a road and you see the hills going on for miles and miles, you have created that in combination with everybody else through your eyes, through the way you perceive it in your brain. Because those frequencies is what give us a color. Everything would be black and white or whatever otherwise. It's only our brain that's converted things to color and made the shapes. Once you realize that everything that you look around at is actually wave patterns when you don't observe it, then you understand that this universe is a bit more special than we're led to believe. And this is where psychics, anybody who's spiritual, who see things, see ghosts, or see other structures or things that are not there, see things in people that are not there. When you see these things, what you realize is that you've tuned your frequency in to something else, another reality. You start viewing everything around you as being full up. Everything here is full up. We just see a frequency that picks up the people that are and the things that are around us. If we changed our frequency, does that mean that all the planets that are near to us are all actually inhabited? Who knows? I haven't actually tuned into that yet, but I have seen people. I've seen things, and I see auras. So you can tune into the electromagnetic frequency. That's what an aura is. And everything has an aura. That's what surprised me. They talk about humans with these different colored auras. Yeah, they do, and they change color depending on mood. And what you realize is that actually all the furniture has auras too. But most of these are the same color. But living things, that changes. So you go out into a woodland and you look at the aura of the trees, and that's all different. But what you tend to find is that furniture and these sorts of items, they're all round about the same whitey blue aura. And once you tune into these things and you start seeing the world from a different perspective, and you start actually seeing people that aren't necessarily there for everybody else, it starts to explain to you why some people would, children particularly, because they're natural and they're unindoctrinated, why they would sit there and have a pretend friend. I mean, how many of us had or how many of us can remember having a pretend friend when they were younger? That was me. Mine was called Hydru, which is a really weird name. But, I chat to him for hours up in my bedroom. And then parents will come up, what are you chatting to, you know? But children are very natural. They're tuned in, and something happens to them during their life. And that's what the education system is there for, is to make sure that everybody's marching to the same step of somebody else's master plan. Because what you realize is that there's a lot more to life than you realize. So if I was to tell you now that understanding about the wave pattern and the way that it works and how it's natural to us, and understanding that all what you see is the frequency you tune into and what you create in your life, and that your body does not end at its skin, because we all pass out energy. So here's another scientific proof. Dr. Masaru Emoto proved that we can alter the structure of a glass of water on the table just by observing it and passing something off at it. So if we were acidic and we chose to focus on fear and put fear into that glass of water, then it would alter its structure to a fear-based glass of water. But if we chose to project love at it, then it would alter the structure into a love-based frequency. And the way he proved this was by freezing droplets of water. What he did was he got drops of water and projected love and fear, whatever, you know, marked them all on top, fear, love, whatever passion, hate, whatever he projected at that particular droplet of water, then he'd freeze them. And what he found was that the ones that he projected a different frequency to, so he actually felt the fear inside and projected that to it, it would freeze as a blob. A bit like dropping a blob of ink on a desk, you know, from a low height, it would just be nothing, it would just be a flat, you know, hump. But when he projected love-based frequencies, so pure love at that water, it would freeze into hexagons and it would crystallize like a snowflake, and it would keep growing and growing and growing. And the stronger that love that he felt towards that, the more symmetrical it would become. So that was his way of proving that we can alter the structure of everything around us just by the way we feel. Now, when you look at that, so we would see a glass of water and we would, you know, look at it and feel love towards it and change it. So we are now 70% water, maybe a bit more, you know, depending on how hydrated you are, but we're 70% water. So that means when we have an alkaline thought, we change the structure of our bodies. And that's what's amazing, because when you reach the alkaline stage and you've done your mind work, when this and this connects, there's something very special that happens within your whole body, and every single cell complies with your heart and brain. Every single cell in your body. I'm actually getting it now while I'm stood here talking to you, because I am serving the universe, whatever you may want to call it. So your whole brain feels like it's actually growing, like it's actually alive, is electrified, and we are electrified beings. Light is that's what we are, pure light. It's source, but we are energy. So in order to keep on to our energy, we need to be energy efficient. If you go into a fear-based mindset, that's your energy being absorbed from you and given to somebody else. If you go into an alkaline mindset, it's being kept. So we need to feed ourselves with the foods that want to keep it, not GMO. We need to feed ourselves organic, not water with, you know, we need to remove the chlorine and the fluoride and things like that that are in our water. You start to remove that. So personally, I do it from distilling water. When you distill water, what you've got to remember is that if you had a car battery, that car battery would need distilled water, because that holds the energy better and it's better for the life of the battery and everything else. So if it's good for holding an energy in a battery, then it's good for holding an energy in me. So when you start thinking like this, you start realizing that when you change your lifestyle and your diet and you become alkaline, you're self-healing. You're giving off these pulses around you, which now you know. So everybody around you starts to feel good. We all get it when people come into the room that we may not even know they're there, but we can we hear the frequencies that they speak or whatever, and we just feel amazing. Oh God, it's so-and-so's here. And then you get the ones who walk in the room and makes you feel acidic and they drain you. And these are the people we've got to stay away from, the ones that do the draining, because that's actually an energy pathway that's opened up between you and them. they feed off of it. It's a bit like in an abusive relationship. So if you have an abusive relationship, what actually happens, let's say you've been abused in your life by somebody, when they walk into the room, what immediately happens, you sort of look down, you're intimidated because you haven't dealt with that fear within. You look down or you look away or you go timid and you bow down to them. You feel that energy just drain. Sometimes it can be so bad that you actually come over cold and you're like, oh my God, so-and-so's over there. But they look over at you and they already know you're there. And they look over at you and they feel that energy come in because they're looking at you intimidated. So there's now an energy pathway that's opened up between you and them. You can shut these down. This is where the saying energy vampires come from. So, when you get energy vampires, they're the people who walk into the room and you just feel drained. You just think, I've lost the will to live around this person. These are the people that we need to stay away from because they're taking our energy. They're taking it because they're so negative charged that they're pulling that, negative and positive both attracts. And, when they're draining that from you, you need to surround yourself in a room full of people who are higher frequency. They're love-based. They're people that make you feel good. Once you do that, you feed off of it. A bit like going to meet a load of friends that you just get along really well with, whether it be a coffee morning or whatever. You're into that mode and you feel great. That's a very, very positive action to take, is to make sure you just stay away from those people or deal with what they're doing to you. That can be done through positive, mindsets. They'll know. They'll know that they can no longer intimidate you because you've already dealt with what they're doing to you or what they've done to you. And there's all different ways that you can transfer that and make that an alkaline thought process towards them. I mean, it doesn't matter who abuses you. So who would it be? Well, let's pick the Queen of England, right? So she's not necessarily abusing anybody per se or doing anything. She's probably got a lot more than most people, and a lot of people feel that it's maybe inequality has made it unjust. But truth be known, when you look at people like this, I view them as victims. Like I said, these people are victims because you can view it from 2 points. So you could say, well, she's got everything. She's got loads of gold. She's got a nice big family. She lives in a massive house. She can go anywhere around the world. She owns a sick for the planet. All these things, you can say that. Or you can go the other way and say, would I want her lifestyle? Everywhere. So fear is a fear-based lifestyle. Anybody who's unequal. So the more positions you have and the more unfair you are to all people around you, you become, that's a fear-based mindset. So when you look at the Queen, what do you see? You see a house that she's in. It's got guards all around it because she fears someone coming in through the doors or the windows. She's got all the people inside to guard her. She's got security systems, great big fence. It's a prison. She can't leave it. She can't live the life that you guys live because she's so watched that she's a victim. She's a victim of the lifestyle that she's chose. She may not know it, but we could all say, yeah, but she eats great or she does this, does that. Well, we can eat great. We can walk down the street. We can see the world for what it actually is. All they actually see is a fake view of it all. Everybody who's around them are doing things that are wrong, And what you find is that when you start looking at people like this, and you start looking at people who own a lot of stuff, possessions in your own life start to fade. When you come to this, I like to call it an awakening. Possessions don't mean so much because you realize that in actual fact the things you don't need hold you down. They clutter your life. They stop you from being this spontaneous person who can do what you want to do, and they actually make your life under a lot more pressure. So when you're there for instance, in my own personal life, I'd never really had much. There was times in my teenage years when I went around in a Rolls Royce, in the back of a Rolls Royce, because my dad was well enough to have a big business and get all that. So I've lived the poor life, the very, very poor life. I've lived the teenage kid in the back of a Rolls Royce life, and then I've gone back down to absolutely nothing, and been there pretty much ever since. Trying to, you have possessions and things like that. What you actually break it down to in the end, and this is the way that people who haven't got much can think about this. When I've gone around working on people's houses or just met people in general life, the happiest people are the ones whose kids are healthy, them and their kids are healthy. They're all having fun. They go out into nature and they've got just about enough money to survive for the next sort of month and a half, 2 months maybe at a push. And these people are the most happy people I've ever met, because I've done work for 6 or 7 millionaires, and I've done work for people who families have funded a new kitchen for them because they're so poor. So I've seen opposite end of the spectrums, and what you find is that millionaires, out of all those millionaires, I've only ever met one that was happy, and he was genuinely self-made millionaire, and he was just happy. He just wanted to go around the world, and he loved it. But the rest of them were so bitter and twisted, and they lived like a caged life. So they didn't even want to communicate with anybody. They're not interested. They don't even want to talk to you half the time. They only do it because they have to, you know. So what you find is that these people, they've got so much to lose, and they've created this life, and they've chose to go all out for money, for gold, as the saying goes, and they realize that it wasn't what they thought it was. The success wasn't actually success. The true success was actually existed in becoming true. If you're going to define true success, number one would be that you're healthy, because that's the A1. Number two would be that everybody around you is healthy, which you can naturally do within yourself. You know, once you're healthy, you can help others. And once you start seeing the patterns of how life should be, the wants and needs, then you start seeing that a need would be food, water, a shelter, warmth, and then companionship. So you need those things, I would say, because without anybody, if you're the only person existing on planet Earth, it would be a pretty tough, harsh place to live. You need someone to communicate with. So there's 5 things that you need. Everything else is a want. So when we walk around, we all say, yeah, but we've got to have mobile phones to be able to do our job, or well, you don't need that to survive. Do you see what I mean? So you can start stripping away all the things and try and get your life down to a simplistic lifestyle where what you eat is organic and good for you, and what you drink as well. But also at the same time, what you're actually having in your life, the things that you surround yourself with. If you've got 5 cars, you can only drive 1. I personally had 11 at one point. They were all bangers, and hardly any of them was on a road. But to me, they were amazing. And you realise that these things that are all around you actually clutter your life. They clutter you from within. And once you start to thin out that and realise what you need and what you want, your life becomes a lot happier. So I think I've covered enough for tonight. I know a lot of people are desperate for a break, or to